Thanks for staying with us on the conversation. Moving on now to the south of the continent, South Africa's Deputy President Paul Mashatile has condemned actions of his bodyguards who were seen assaulting a motorist on the highway. 4 police officers assigned to protect VP Mashatile are facing charges of assault and other offences after a video surfaced on social media showing them kicking and stomping on 2 men they had pulled over on the highway. The incident captured in a video that went viral showed the plainclothes officers attacking the men after pulling them over on the Johannesburg highway.
Now, the officers are part of the Blue Light Brigade responsible for protecting politicians and VIPs, and they will be charged with assault with intent to cause grievous bodily harm, pointing a firearm, and malicious damage to property. They will face charges and potential suspension from their jobs. Outraged by the incident, South Africans have called for an end to police brutality, citing previous cases and the need for accountability within the law. But before we introduce our distinguished guest on this conversation, let's take a listen to what the South African authorities are saying about this incident.
He was extremely alarmed by the news of a road rage incident involving members of SAPS assigned to protect the Deputy President. This was not only cowardly, but runs against the grain of what SAPS must stand for, which is to protect all members of society. We believe that the majority of the policemen and women serve our country diligently, but such incidents put a serious blight on the police service as a whole in their selfless national service in our country.
Now, that's the African National Congress Secretary General talking about that incident. Now, joining us in this discussion, we have Gideon Chitanga, a political analyst, joins us from South Africa, and we also have Sisman Mutlong, political science lecturer at Northwest University in South Africa. He joins us from Vanderbilt Park. A warm welcome to you, gentlemen, and thanks for joining us on the conversation.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Now, I'd like to start with you, Sisman. Given the recent incident involving the assault by South Africa's deputy presidents, bodyguards and motorists, what underlying factors do you believe contribute to such incidents of police brutality in South Africa?
I think for me, what fuels this kind of aggression by the police, it is that supra power that they enjoy, because they are the police, especially protecting the president or the deputy president. They are the elite, in a sense, within the police force. And the attitude that they have is that when they are on the roads, motorists should make way for them. And in this regard, they do not make way. They tend to become aggressive and to harass the motorists. For me, it is that a sense of being untouchable, enjoying the fetters of power, knowing that you are already protected by those that are in power. It is only here where we see this happening, and it was exposed on social media. If it was not captured by civilians and posted on social media, these people may likely have gotten away with this.
Okay, now, Gideon, looking at the public outrage, I mean, we're seeing reports that this is not the first time such a thing is happening. So tell us, or give us instances of how often this occurs, and what's the level of public outrage and the potential impact on public trust in law enforcement institutions in South Africa?
There are quite a number of issues that are concerned with the behavior of the police. I think that the inherent culture within the police force, in the South African police force, to as a matter of tendency to use disproportionate force in cases that could be dealt differently, particularly when it comes to the need to respect the rights of individuals and also play upholding the rule of law. So this case just demonstrates a pervasive culture within the police force to tend to abuse their power by using disproportionate force, sometimes outright violence that is to violate the right of concerned individuals, in most cases innocent citizens. You can see from the video that the level of lawlessness that evidently comes out there does not reflect the moderation that you expect from figures which would behavior should be governed by clear regulation and broadly by the rule of law.
All right.
But also, we are talking.
Gideon, we'll get back to you. We'll get back to you shortly. We're still trying to get your audio clearly, but I also want Sisman to also react to this. I mean, in light of the widespread complaints, what specific measures are you satisfied with the government's response so far to this incident? What can be done to make sure that such a thing or this issue is addressed effectively?
I think in the past, there is a politician here in South Africa, Helen Zille, who was the leader of the major political party in opposition, the Democratic Alliance. And she had called for an end to this kind of a blue light services where protection services of presidents, even ministers or premiers, would be highly speeding in the roads. And because in that time, there were incidents of accidents where they would knock into a biker, knock into a motorist, people would be paralyzed, some would lose their lives. And she was saying, these are public servants. They should use the roads equally with the residents and not to be bullies on the road. And this is the kind of these protective services that when they are on the road, they are speeding. And if you are not careful, then maybe you realize later that you are in the path and they caution you, move out of the path, and you delay. This is when maybe they would deliberately push you off, maybe bump you off, or in this regard, I would assume they stopped this motorist and they start assaulting them. Recently, it has not been reports of accidents, but we have seen several times that a deputy president's motor vehicle, David Mabuza, in Mpumalanga province was involved in several accidents. MECs in the KZN, KwaZulu-Natal province, were involved in an accident. So you want to think how they got into an accident, except that maybe they were speeding. This is typical of them. But what are the remedies in this regard? It is only here maybe you suspend them. After suspending them, how do we know that in future there won't be such kind of practices? There's been proposals of saying install cameras in those vehicles to know how they behave, how much they're speeding, even if there is no one in there, like a president or the political principal in the car. But how they behave is something that needs to be monitored. And the South African Police Services has to install some measures of discipline. And political officials as well, they must hold their bodyguards accountable to say, you are in my service, and it shall not be that you appear in public as rogue people misbehaving in this kind of nature, where you even violate civilians. It is a matter of discipline that has to be instilled by politicians and then the SAPS in terms of training those people and being harsh on them whenever this kind of abuses occur.
Staying with you, Sisman, you've mentioned what needs to be done to prevent this sort of incidents from happening again. But what implications does this incident have for the reputation of the South African government, particularly in terms of its commitment to protecting the rights and safety of its citizens? And also, how can the South African government strike a balance between ensuring the safety of its public officials and VIPs while also safeguarding the safety of ordinary citizens and road users?
I think as an executive leadership, all presidents, they have this sense of maybe threat around them. Those that are protecting them are always alert of any potential threat. I think about 3 days ago, there was a video on Twitter as well in the US where the president's motorcade was moving and some biker was going to pass. Maybe I think he was trying to push his way before the motorcades passed the intersection. And the police official went and bounced him off the bike and he fell. There was that kind of saying, you are lucky they didn't even shoot you. So what happens, this is not only about the reputation of South African government or the executive politicians. This is global, where we say the security around the heads of states and those that are protecting them, how do they imagine themselves working in a context of civilians? You know that your motorcade will pass in a particular section and there's likely to be civilians around. Why do you have to be aggressive when there is no potential threat? This person is just driving or is slow to get off the road, or maybe announce in advance that a particular lane would be closed for so many minutes. They have to be cautious and not in terms of imposing themselves to own the roads. So it is not only there. I think as well last week there was also on Twitter a motorcade of the Nigerian president. So many vehicles say this is the president arriving in the country, and look how many cars in the convoy that is with him. Our politicians generally enjoy this thing of a motorcade. It's nice maybe to be driven fast and to be protected by
Fast and
these people.
furious.
So it is a global trend that I think we as citizens have to now start holding them accountable, even to a point of limiting the kind of motorcades that they have. I think the proposals that in South Africa we've had from the likes of Democratic Alliance, they say disallow a blue light altogether. When you do that, it means we use the road as equal users, and then there would be a less likelihood of this kind of incidents happening. It is a matter of them knowing that they serve the public and not the owners or the bosses of the roads.
I totally understand the situation you're painting. I think I witnessed that during the weekend. We had to wait for like 30 minutes before vehicles would pass because there was supposed to be an official passing. So I really understand what you're saying there. Now, concerning the vice president, I mean, you said that these people, even though they're not him, but they're representing him. What has been his response so far to the incident so far?
I think the deputy president, he spoke, Mashatile spoke about this to say this is not something that he stands for. And now there is talk about to what extent should politicians be accountable for misdemeanor by their bodyguards. And personally, I feel it will be stretching the scale of accountability when you have to hold the deputy president or any executive politician accountable because somebody who protects them has misbehaved. Instead, I think it's a matter of character, a virtue by a politician to hold their personnel accountable, to discipline them, to keep them in line, to say, if you would step out of line, you'll be not in my service anymore. I think that is more of a strict tone that we need to see and we need to hear from them. And if that becomes normalized, I think the protective services personnel would be more accustomed to that. And the SAPS itself, I think the great burden lies on the SAPS to say these are the people you deployed. Do you know the kind of character they have, the kind of temper that they have, and you let them to go into the streets in this kind of a classification of a protective services? Maybe you pull them off and then install people that are disciplined. I think the matter that we need there is discipline and compassion as much as they serve the public.
Thank you very much, Sisman Mutlong, political science lecturer at Northwest University. We do appreciate your contribution and insights, and also to Gideon Chitanga. It's quite unfortunate that we had issues with your audio connection. We look forward to better engagement in the future.
Thank you so much.